Hey, welcome back to my Internal Affairs channel. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because today's story, it's not your typical tale. It's raw, it's messy, and it'll pull you into emotions you didn't even realize you had. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment. It was well past midnight. I had been lying in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts spinning endlessly. Nothing felt quiet tonight, not really. The house wasn't empty. It was heavy, weighted with memories and the kind of loneliness that seeps into your bones. Eventually, I gave up on trying to sleep and quietly slipped out of bed, heading for the kitchen for some water. The living room lights were still on. That was unusual. My brother, Casey, had sent Paul over. Paul wasn't a family member I knew well, not personally, but I knew enough to understand he was carrying the weight of heartbreak. His wife had betrayed him. Something so cruel and sudden that it shattered the life he thought he knew. Casey had begged me, "Jessica, please just give him a safe space for a while. He needs peace." I didn't know what to expect. Paul was a stranger in my home, but somehow, I understood his pain. He was like a mirror reflecting my own long-ago loss. 7 years ago, I had lost my husband, Jacob. He died suddenly of a heart attack at 60. One day, we were building the life of our dreams, planning a house, a future, and the next it all vanished. That emptiness, it never really leaves. And tonight, it pressed down on me harder than usual. I stepped quietly into the living room, and there he was. Paul, sitting on the couch, lost in a romantic movie flickering on the TV. He didn't notice me at first. I paused in the doorway, taking him in. There was a kind of sadness in the slump of his shoulders, the quiet way he breathed. My heart went out to him. And for a moment, I almost turned back to my room, unsure if I should intrude on someone else's sorrow. Then he looked up. "Did I wake you?" he asked, his voice soft, tinged with hesitation and a quiet desperation that made my chest tighten. "No," I said, giving him a small, almost fragile smile. "I just came for water." And in that instant, I realized how alone I truly felt. For years, I had been living with my memories, with the echoes of Jacob's voice, the emptiness in the corners of our house. But seeing Paul sitting there, quietly suffering beside me, it made the emptiness feel sharper, more tangible. "Come sit," Paul said, motioning to the empty spot next to him. "Let's watch it together." It was such a simple invitation, yet it struck something deep inside me. I wanted company, even just a little warmth in the middle of a night filled with shadows. So I sat down. The movie started, but I barely watched it. My eyes wandered to Paul, his nervous glances, the way his fingers fiddled with the blanket, the quiet sighs he let slip. It was odd, how a stranger could suddenly feel like the only person who might understand the hollow ache in your chest. Then it happened, small, almost accidental. I leaned slightly to reach for the blanket, and my hand brushed against his arm. I recoiled instantly. "Sorry," I blurted out, eyes darting away, cheeks burning. "It's okay. Don't worry about it," Paul replied quietly. But even as he said it, the air between us seemed to thicken. Something unspoken had shifted. The space once measured and safe felt smaller, closer. For the first time in years, I realized that being near another man, really near, sitting side by side, was stirring emotions I hadn't felt in forever. Confusion, warmth, an almost forbidden spark. The movie continued, but neither of us could focus. Both of us were lost in our own thoughts, yet strangely tethered together by the silence, the accidental touch, the shared sorrow. I could feel the tension rising in me, like a slow burn that refused to be ignored. This wasn't comforting. It was stirring memories of what I had lost, and reminding me of desires I had pushed deep down, buried under grief and years of solitude. Paul's presence wasn't just a distraction, it was a mirror. A mirror showing me what it might feel like to trust, to feel attraction again, to allow another human being into a space I had sworn was mine alone. And for the first time in years, I didn't look away. I stayed there, seated beside him, aware of every nuance, every flicker of emotion in his eyes. When the movie finally ended, I left the couch almost mechanically, heading to my room. My mind raced. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at nothing, wrestling with feelings I didn't understand. Sleep wasn't an option tonight. Not after that encounter. Not after the flutter of something I hadn't felt since Jacob's death. Morning came slowly, the house bathed in soft gray light. I made my way to the piano, hoping that playing might chase away the unease that had settled in my chest. My fingers brushed the keys, coaxing out a melody that reminded me of Jacob, of the life we had shared, of everything that had slipped through my fingers. Then I heard it, a shadow at the window, the soft shuffle of footsteps. Paul, out for an early morning walk, now quietly standing there, watching me play. I froze for a moment, heart pounding. The tension from last night surged back, stronger this time, more insistent. Beautiful, he said simply, as if his words were ordinary. And yet they made my pulse jump. And in that moment I knew something was shifting. Something had begun that neither of us could have anticipated. The morning light streamed softly through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the piano. I kept playing, each note trembling with the mixture of nostalgia and unease swirling inside me. Paul didn't move. He just stood there, quietly watching, his eyes tracing the subtle rise and fall of my shoulders, the delicate movements of my hands on the keys. For a moment, it was almost like we existed in a bubble, one separate from the past, from grief, from betrayal. I could feel the distance between us shrinking with every passing second, replaced by something else, something that made my heart race in a way I hadn't felt in years. "Thank you," he said softly after a while, and the simplicity of the word felt like an electric current. "Honestly, that's the best gift I've had in a long time. Watching you play, it's beautiful." I swallowed, a lump rising in my throat. I'm glad you like it," I whispered. There was no denying the flutter in my chest. Something was stirring, and I wasn't entirely sure I wanted it to stop. Then, almost casually, Paul mentioned it. "Did you know? I turned 40 today." The words hit me in a way I didn't expect. 40. Not just a number, but a marker of life, of struggles endured, of everything that had shaped him into the man sitting before me. And here I was feeling something entirely new, yet familiar, stirring inside me. "Your birthday?" I asked, my mind racing with possibilities. "We should celebrate." He gave me a surprised smile, one that made the corners of his eyes crinkle just slightly. "If you're suggesting it, I guess tonight might be fun." His voice carried a teasing tone, light yet intimate. "But there's a catch. You have to play the piano again. No excuses." I laughed softly, feeling my chest tighten with anticipation. "All right," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But we'll open a good bottle of wine, and make a proper toast." Even that small, casual exchange sent ripples through me. I pushed the feelings aside, telling myself it was just a small birthday celebration. Nothing more. Evening arrived, warm and quiet, with the soft glow of lamps creating a cozy cocoon inside the house. Paul and I uncorked the wine, the rich aroma filling the air as we poured it into crystal glasses. The clink of glasses felt ceremonial, a small act that somehow made the world feel lighter. "Happy birthday," I said, raising my glass to meet his. "Thank you," he replied, his smile soft, sincere. And as we sipped, something shifted. The conversation flowed effortlessly. He told stories about his past. I shared memories of Jacob, of family, of life before loss. It was intimate, but not in a forced way. It was the kind of connection that sneaks up on you, a warmth that seeps into your bones without permission. There were moments when our hands brushed, brief, fleeting touches that sent jolts through me. Each time, I caught my breath. My thoughts were a tangled mess of excitement, guilt, longing, and curiosity. I was drawn to him in a way I hadn't expected, but it was impossible to ignore. "Play something for me," Paul said, settling into the couch with a playful grin. I hesitated, then let my fingers glide across the keys. The music filled the room, soft, lingering, almost sensual. I could feel his gaze on me, steady and unwavering, and it sent a shiver down my spine. When I looked up, he was smiling, that calm, sincere expression that made my chest ache with longing. "You have no idea how comforting this is," he murmured. "Being here, watching you play. It's more than I can explain." And in that moment I realized, my life had been empty, but not anymore. Paul's presence, his words, his quiet attention, it filled the gaps I hadn't known existed. As the night deepened, the wine loosened our inhibitions. The conversation grew softer, more personal. I don't usually talk like this, Paul admitted. Not to anyone. But with you, it feels natural. Something inside me shifted. I felt a boldness I hadn't allowed myself in years. I understand, I said quietly. I've been alone for so long. And yet, I never thought someone could make me feel this way again. We shared a long look, one charged with unspoken understanding. No words could describe it. This strange mix of grief, desire, and something entirely new. Later, we found ourselves sitting closer, the physical proximity matching the emotional closeness that had grown between us. There was a magnetic pull neither of us could resist. Yet we lingered on the edge, testing the boundaries of friendship, respect, and the delicate tension building between us. I could feel my heart hammering, my mind racing. This wasn't just attraction. It was the combination of shared loss, understanding, and the undeniable chemistry simmering beneath the surface. And yet there was no rush, no forced action. Just the quiet realization that something profound had begun. As the evening drew to a close, we stepped out onto the porch, the night air crisp and calming. Paul looked at me, and I saw a vulnerability I hadn't noticed before, a softness that mirrored my own. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything tonight. I don't think I've felt this at ease in years." I smiled, feeling the warmth spread through me. "Me too," I admitted. And for the first time, I let myself relax fully, knowing that the loneliness that had haunted me for so long was beginning to fade. We didn't need words to explain what was happening. The night had revealed something neither of us could have predicted. A connection that was deep, healing, and undeniably real. That night, I went to bed feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not just for companionship, not just for warmth, but for the possibility that life could still surprise me, even after loss, betrayal, and heartbreak. And Paul, he wasn't just a visitor in my house. He became a mirror, a presence, and a reminder that even in the darkest nights, the human heart has the power to find connection, understanding, and a spark that refuses to die. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more true stories that will tug at your heart. Sometimes, life's most unexpected encounters turn out to be the ones that heal us the most.